we're making this transition from wife to caregiver,
Yeah.
We've always had a very, very strong relationship. Praise the Lord. My wife is my queen, and I am the king. Okay, I put it this way: I am the head of the family, and my wife is the neck, and she tells the head where to turn. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Come on, so. What a transition before this all took place. I mean, we had date night.
We did.
You know, and we had all these things that we did, going to the kids' sports events, going to their band events, any school events. We, you know, a lot of service in the church. And so we stayed pretty active. We you know, we were in the middle of building our own home. And when I say that, I don't mean we contracted it out. I mean that we put hammer in hand and built our home stick by stick, with a lot of help from parents and well, parents. But you know, we had a set future that we saw in mind.
Yeah.
And then this took place, and so all of a sudden, sweetheart, you had to go from just being wife, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Wife is an incredible position in the house, but I mean, from wife, you had to make this transition to now the husband that you could lean on was somebody you had to care for. I mean, you saw me go from what was it, 204 or 5 pounds down to 140, 140 pounds week and everything. So let's move on to these questions about this subject here. Again, making the transition from wife to caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
As a caregiver, what what were the primary responsibilities you have in supporting my day-to-day life with pulmonary fibrosis?
In the beginning, when you first came home from the hospital, or when you were about to come home from the hospital, think you had maybe 30% lung capacity then. So there was I think God knew that I needed to have muscles. That's why we were building the house, because I was having to lift you and move you, and it was, you know, help you shower, and it was just physical. There was a lot of physical responsibility there. As far as just day-to-day stuff, immediately there was a ton of medications.
Oh yes.
I was fearful, again, fear. And I remember telling my sister-in-law this. I'm afraid for him to come home from the hospital. I want him to come home, but I'm afraid because I have no training in how to care for him. I don't know, you know, how to give medicines correctly, how to help him when he can't breathe. Just anyway, but I read a lot.
Yes.
I do. And I go to people who know, who have experienced things. It was hard for me to find anyone immediately, but I think that's part of my responsibility, is knowing, educating myself.
Right.
And so I had to educate myself. I had Grampy come, which it was his idea, not mine, but he came, and that's your dad.
My dad.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Anyway, I had him. He came out, and he and your mom built a ramp going into the house. Which
I was in a wheelchair, right? Yes.
For the most part, at the beginning you were in a wheelchair. And then the oxygen tanks, were the huge oxygen tanks, because you couldn't do portable because it didn't give enough flow. Yeah, there was a lot of physical stuff, and then preparations, getting all the plants out of the house, which now the pulmonologist says was not necessary. But at the time, that's what I was told to do. So that's what I did. I had to get air purifiers in the house. I had to make sure there was no carpet in the house, you know,
Right.
day-to-day stuff, making sure
Right.
you ate. You didn't want to eat when you first came home. So you drank a lot of Ensure.
Yes.
And there were so many appointments. And it was just, and also we had a teenage daughter at home, and we had a daughter in college. So it was trying to still be mom. That was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody needs you.
Right.
But you needed me just like a child would need me.
Right.
So
Right.
it was a lot. It was a lot. And psychologically, it was like a whirlwind, just like a tornado. You know, I was up before everybody, which is still pretty much, well, no, now you're up earlier. I was up before everybody, and I was going to bed way later than anybody.
Yes. And even then, I'm sure couldn't sleep very well because you're wondering if I'm going to,
Right.
yeah, through the
Stop
night.
breathing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Listen, if I can't express enough how important a caregiver is to somebody, and that job is such a burden that they have to put on their shoulders. They do it out of love. And so if you're a patient, appreciate your caregiver, because I think even as a patient, even then I look back, I think it was much, much harder, and still much, much harder for my wife, who had to give everything and not know if it was going to be in vain, you know, not knowing if I was going to even live the next day. Whereas for me, it was breathe and pray. That was it. She had to help me stand up off of the toilet, off of the kitchen chairs, off of the bed. Um, she had to help me walk. She did everything for me, you know, and still does a lot, mostly because I'm lazy. But you know, it was different then.